Oh, they've heard everything we've said. I didn't know. Hi, everybody. Kathy Heltzer here at the UU Forum. Nice to see all of you online and all of you in the room. So today we have with us Candy Winkler, who is with the Victory Chorus. The Victory Chorus is a chorus for people with cognitive impairment, Alzheimer's. She'll tell you all about it. I'm a founding member with my mom years ago, and obviously the pandemic was tough for the Victory Chorus. But without further ado, I'm going to introduce Candy Winkler. Give her a round of applause.
Thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here, a chance to talk to you again. I think many of you were on Zoom when I spoke about this microphone.
Oh, microphone.
Oh, okay. Okay, I can't talk much longer, so good. This is working.
Can the people on camera hear that?
She doesn't want the podium. She's good.
I just don't like. I mean, I can stand back up and there. Would you prefer I go on?
No.
Okay.
Good, if you want.
Will that mess up the Zoom if I sit?
No, I'll just angle it toward you.
Okay. Now it's really nice and easy.
Good.
That just feels like a support person. Yeah, I can't remember when I spoke with you, but I know this is kind of in the midst of the pandemic and we weren't meeting as a course yet. And so I want to give you some updates, but is there anybody in the room that might be on Zoom who isn't familiar with the Victory Course, at least a little bit? Okay, well, good. And I'll practice on you giving you some information about us, some background on us, and then starting in the middle here. So the Victory Course is a course. It's a Dementia-Inclusive course or Dementia-Inclusive course. It was formed in 2019. And the course is made up of basically 3 different categories. We have participants who are people living with dementia or some other kind of illness or life pattern that gets in the way of recognition. And then we have the care partners with people who basically come with their loved one or their friend or whoever and support them during the Victory Course. It doesn't mean they have to sing, but they do accompany them to the course. And then we have volunteer singers. And for those and then we also have operations volunteers. I don't want to forget them because they get our snacks and they set up the room for us, and they're very important as well. So we have volunteers, we have people living with dementia, and we have their care partners, and they're all important people in the Victory Course. We started the course in 2019, and I think we've had into 3 or 4 different singing seasons. And then, of course, in March of 2020, we were days away from doing our concert and decided we had to cancel because COVID had hit our community a little bit. It wasn't real big then, but it turned out to be the right decision. And so that kind of stopped everything. We weren't able to practice as a choir for quite a while, and so we recouped as quickly as possible. We tried a number of things during the pandemic. And basically it worked out because we did survive it without, ending the Victory Course totally. What we did at first was Zoom sing-alongs. And for those of you who do Zoom things, you realize that you can't all talk at once. You certainly can't sing all at once. And so for many of us as singers, I think Kathy would attest to this, it wasn't a lot of fun because there'd be one person singing, the rest of us would be, singing along, but basically in the back of our own homes. So, and it didn't work as well here as it maybe worked in the cities. We're modeled after Giving Voice Choir, which is a dementia-friendly choir, and they're probably the people who really started the movement in the United States, at least. And they have a lot of couples who are part of the Victory Course. I mean, it's mainly like a care partner and their spouse who are members of the Victory Course. I mean, of the Giving Voice Course. And so during the pandemic, they always at least had 2 people, and the Zoom practices worked quite well for them. Plus, they had a lot more technology, and so they could have 3 or 4 different people singing together, and they just had a much better technology setup, and so it was more successful with that type of choir. Most of us are smaller choirs. There's basically 4 other smaller choirs in the state of Minnesota, and we networked together a lot. And all of us were really struggling with how we were going to maintain during the pandemic. So what we decided to do was we kept the Zooms going as long as it was somewhat successful. And what we did was open them up to everybody and make it more social time, actually. And for a while, that worked really well in the beginning because people were connecting with their loved ones, whether they were in Bemidji, and then Marilyn would be on, and she would have all kinds of friends from out the state. Garrison Keeler signed it one day to say Maryland. And then other families did it as well. We had people in Milwaukee, we had people out of state. And it was a way for people to get a social time in the middle of the course. And so it was a time for people to connect with one another, which was just as important as singing that it comes right down to. And then we also, in the summer, we did sing-alongs outside. We go to different facilities and we'd sing outside their windows. And people loved that. And then as the pandemic eased up a little bit after vaccinations came about, then we were able to go into the facilities and offer sing-alongs with the facilities. And we did that in memory care units. We did it in assisted living places. And we had a group of probably about 12 singers from the Victory Chorus that went and sang in different facilities. And we did that throughout the pandemic and right into the spring of 2022. And then in the summer of 2022, we decided to work with one of our facilities that we've been singing at a lot, and that was the Adult Day Services Program at Benedictine Health. And that's the only adult day services program in our area. And so it really attracts a lot of people who are in the early stages of dementia, people who've just been diagnosed and that type of thing. And we found that group absolutely loves singing together. And so we started a course, a victory course, in June of 2022 up at Benedictine. We sing in the chapel up there. We bring volunteers with us, singing volunteers. And so we have about 14 people from Adult Day Services that sing in the choir. And that has turned out to be just a really wonderful effort for the victory course. And some of them also come on Sunday and with their care partners and sing in the Sunday choir. But it's our idea then was we would start with the community victory chorus, which we did in September, and then we would sing the same music and join the two choirs for a celebration of song, which we had on November 20th. We didn't know how it was going to work. We didn't know whether we'd be able to get everybody from the Adult Day Services Program here because we really didn't have a lot of access to their caregivers. We were working completely with staff at ADS, but it turned out that we were able to get their emails, we were able to communicate with them. They showed up for the dress rehearsal, and then every single one of them was here with their family members for the celebration of song. So the group that you saw, some of you who were at the concert, saw both groups together. And we had a total, I think, 47 people, 18 people living with dementia, which was significant, 10 care partners, and 19 volunteer singers. So it was a much better balance than we had with our larger course. Our winter session will start in February of 2023. The ADS group will start on February 8th, and the choir group here will start on February 12th. So if any of you are interested in joining us, we would love that. We're trying to do more outreach efforts, going into senior living complexes like Zavago and places like that, reaching into assisted living and independent living facilities, and then also the faith communities such as today when we're trying to reach out to people. But our biggest challenge all along has been finding the people living with dementia who are interested in singing. And the best way that we can sell the victory course, I think, is by telling people why music is so important. Not just to people living with dementia, but to any of us, and I include myself totally, there's people with aging brains. I mean, this morning, I printed out my notes and left them upstairs 3 times before I finally, did what I was supposed to do when I went upstairs and didn't get distracted. And everybody does that. That's a part of the normal aging brain. I keep telling myself that. Actually, it is.
Actually, it is.
It is. There's a lot of things that happen with the normal aging brain. And the reality is that music helps us with those things. It really does. Johns Hopkins has been doing research, extensive research on music and its effects on the brain, on the aging brain, and on dementia. And they have found out that the brain literally lights up when people are singing. And different parts of the brain light up if you're playing piano or listening to music that lights up when you're singing. And so it hits all different kinds of areas of the brain. Some things hit like the creative side or the right side, and sometimes they hit more of the structural pieces. And so it's really quite fascinating what it does, but we know that it helps. And so some of the other things that happen, they found that physically, music, the singing, it helps reduce anxiety and certain levels of pain. It lowers your blood pressure. It increases mental acuity. Of course, memory, which is what we're talking about, your mood. And in the UK, as they were studying, they found out that singing actually lessens the need for certain kinds of drugs, that people have been able to sing versus use drugs. You know, people who have traumatic brain injuries benefit greatly from singing in their healing process, that it speeds up the healing process. There are social benefits of singing together as we're doing the choir. Quality of life, sense of well-being, and people living with dementia especially tend to lack social interaction to a great extent. And I want to give you a few examples of this because my sister died of dementia in September during the pandemic. And my sister was a church organist. She was a wonderful musician, a lovely singer. And when she'd always been involved in church activities and church music and that kind of thing, and when she got dementia, she lost a lot of inhibitions. And my brother-in-law, who was phenomenal in caring for her during her illness, wanted to protect her. He wanted to protect her from being embarrassed. There were a couple times when they were at church and Cheryl didn't realize that she was no longer the pianist or the organist. And so she would get up and say, oh, I've got to go play. And she would get up in the middle of church. And my brother was worried that she was embarrassing herself. And he felt like she had this, you know, this wonderful dignified woman who was protective of her. And that's a really good example of what people do with their loved one who has dementia. They tend to isolate them, not out of a lack of love or out of, it's just the opposite. It's because they love them so much and they want people to remember them in a certain way. And so, and we've talked with some of the caregivers of the Adult Day Services program, and they've expressed some of those same things, you know, in terms of whether they wanted their loved one to perform in public, you know, not knowing what they were going to say or what they were going to do. And we just said, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. We're here for them. But a lot of times it's very well-meaning, but people who used to be in church choirs, for example, are no longer in church choirs or not in community choirs, or they're taken out of some of those social situations that they loved and were part of. And one really strong role of the Victory course is to reduce the stigma of the disease of dementia. It is a devastating disease. There's no way around it. And, you know, we're not going to deny how sad it is and how hard it is to watch someone you love become a different person or not have the same abilities that they once had. But music is one of those things that continues to give joy no matter what. As I said, my sister was a wonderful pianist and organist, and but she never played by ear. She wasn't that kind of music artist, and she always had extent. You know, she had hard, very, from my perspective, very difficult music that she was playing. And when she had dementia, I remember we were there one Thanksgiving, and my partner, well, basically, I'll just say we wanted to get her out of the kitchen because she was also a wonderful cook, but constantly, you know, opening pans and messing up the kitchen. So we said, Marian, why don't you go see if Cheryl play piano for you? And she did. And Cheryl sat down and played not the most recent music, but she played all the hymns that she remembered from her child, Evangelical. And so like, oh, Red Cross, and just all kinds of songs. She was sitting up and playing them by ear. She had no music in front of her. She had retained all that music in her somewhere. And once given the opportunity, I mean, she didn't sound like the classical pianist that she was, but she sounded good and she knew it. And, you know, and she was, I think she surprised herself a little bit and were able to sing with her and had a lot of fun and realized, you know, that music, you know, her continuing to do that musical stuff is just very, very important. Music taps into our memories in very unique ways. I'm sure you've heard. Do you remember where you were the first time you heard the Beatles, for example? Or or maybe it was something else, but you know, like I think a lot of the music that we've been singing with our Adult Day Services group is music from the 60s. because that's when they were growing up. And we found out that that music that you heard when you were in high school is especially important music that takes you back. I mean, you know, how many of us have a song that we used to, you know, cry to during our first breakup, or what did you have sung to your wedding, or what played at prom, or dances? That kind of music takes us back. And you listen to a song, and it does, it just viscerally takes you back to the place and the feelings and the people you were with. I mean, it's really, excuse me, very amazing what music does. And so thinking about those memories and thinking about the music that was important to us is just a really big piece of this. And we have a part during our practices called Music in Need, which is an opportunity, excuse me, it's an opportunity for people, the volunteers and the people living with dementia who are participating, to talk about music and how they feel about it. And I remember, some of you may know Annie Kennedy, Janet Kennedy's mom, and Annie was the part of the choir early on, and she got up and talked about the music of the civil rights movement and how that was so meaningful to her, and shared some of the music that she sang. We've had other people talk about music that they had in Girl Scouts, or that their family used to sing around the piano at Christmas and things like that. So, and we find out that holiday music especially is, thanks so much. Holiday music is especially remembered. When we went into adult services last week, we found out that we were going to do holiday singing for a month, and we found out that they had brought all these people down from their memory care unit, their nursing unit. We had 65 people there, and about 20 of them were in wheelchairs. And we didn't have that much music. And it turned out it didn't matter at all. These people learned the music. They were singing along. They knew all the words. They were having a ball. And we're going to do that two more times. And anybody is welcome to join us on Wednesday at BHC too. In fact, we especially need volunteer singers. We meet at 2 o'clock at BHC in the chapel up there. So if any of you want to join us, please feel free. But anyway, it was just a great way to see how much, you know, we retain the words of their music. We're planning for the future of it, and we realize that this is a really important thing in our community. As I said, we're one of about only 4 courses in Minnesota. There's one in Mankato, there's one in Rochester. There are actually 2 Giving Voice choirs in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and I think there's one other one. But we're part of an international movement. Scotland has a phenomenal site about, you know, dementia and music, and in fact, we've gotten some of our music from them. They can get the music very cheaply or free, and we have a wonderful program. There's a British actress that we record. She's been in a lot of British TV. I'm a big fan. I don't know who you are. But if you are, you would recognize her. And Dementia has, over the last 3 years, developed something called Dementia Choir. And she did it in honor of her grandmother who had dementia and not dementia. And she was very close to her, and her grandmother loved to sing. And so she just started Dementia Choir. We've written that you can go online and watch the concerts, and it's pretty inspirational. So it's like I said, it's an inspirational movement, and we're very, very lucky in Minnesota to have the Big Giving Voice. They developed a toolkit that's been followed, and that's open to anybody international. And I think to kind of show or demonstrate just how important this movement is, the Alzheimer's Association is developing a formal relationship with Giving Voice to promote dementia choirs, and that will probably be throughout the United States, which is really an interesting movement. We just found that out. The director of the Alzheimer's Association is on our advisory board, as is Kathy Hunter, and a number of other people. And she told us about this, and we feel that's a really significant thing because the Alzheimer's Association really put their stamp of approval on music and choirs. And I know I was looking all over Wisconsin for a dementia choir when my sister was taken ill. And so I looked every place, and the only one in Wisconsin is in Milwaukee, and it's actually an African-American choir that's really a great choir. but that was the only one in the state. And so it's something that we're really fortunate in our community, and we just want to make sure that everybody has at least the opportunity to try it or turn it down if they don't want to do it, but that they hear about it and know it. And as I said, the major issue that we face is not being able to do enough outreach to people living with dementia, not knowing who they are. They get hidden. So we've been doing, we contact a lot of ministers, we contact a lot of civic groups. We try to get the word out as much as possible, but I think Kathy would agree that's our biggest challenge. We've been doing some outreach to some of the physicians who do elder care. Some of the neurologists in our community are much more open to it than they used to be, and ask for materials to get out to their patients. But there's also that reticence of people who are living with it to identify it. And that's what we say, no one has to identify to come to the choir. We don't have to have a diagnosis. That's not important. As we said, it helps anybody. So we actually really encourage anyone, who's aging to be part of the Victory Chorus, because it's going to help. It's going to make you feel good. I remember singing in a church choir when I was, a young adult with little kids, and just thinking, I don't want to go to choir practice. It just seemed like too much work. Finding a babysitter, all that stuff. But it never failed. I'd go and I'd come home feeling re-energized and feeling much better than before. So we know how much it impacts us. So looking towards the future, our hope is in the next year to possibly, we're going to go after some grant money. We've been supported by the Victory Fund very generously since the inception of the Victory Chorus. And
you need the mic closer to your mouth.
Okay, sorry. Okay. The Victory Fund gives us, they're very generous. They've supported us almost entirely by themselves. But if we want to expand, if we want to grow our staff, which is very small, we're all contract staff, we need to find more money. So what we're doing is we're applying for some grants throughout our local foundations and looking for grants that are open to funding something like the Dementia Choir, arts grants, and that type of thing. Because our goal is we would like to expand the Victory Chorus into either another community or to another living sites such as Delta Services, Benedictine. We are looking at the Two Harbors community, their program called Community Partners, and the Arrowhead Agents, the Arrowhead Area Agencies on Aging, Quad A, is also up there and is really interested in helping us start a fire up there. So that'll depend on funding, but we're hoping to expand our efforts because we want just as many people as possible to be able to access the fire. Think about joining. Think about telling anybody that you know about joining. Just spread the word if you can. We'll be having another concert on April 30th to end our next season. And at that time, we filled this church a few weeks ago, and we want to do it again. And that's always helpful in getting the word out and having people know about the fire. So I guess at this time, I'd just like to see if anybody either here or on Zoom has any questions regarding the Victory Chorus.
Anybody have any questions in the room? Will Munger has a question, shockingly.
I didn't ask my wife's permission to ask this. But you mentioned at the beginning the origins of the Victory Choir, and I might have missed it, but how did they settle on the word victory? What does that stand for?
Kathy Heltzer was on the forming committee. I didn't come along until later. I got the clue of it, but I'll let her tell you about that.
Yes, I feel bad for these guys because they can't hear and they can't see. So surprisingly, we thought it was kind of brilliant. The Victory Fund funds us, and we thought, well, why don't we name it the Victory Chorus? And it's not that and this goes online, doesn't it? Anyways, it's not that they couldn't pull their funding at some point. Maybe they'll have different priorities and they'll do that. But on the other hand, we thought that our primary funder would have a lot of ownership of our chorus if we called it the Victory Chorus. That's what that was.
Well, my understanding is also that when we talked about it further, at least this is in some of the early writings that Nini Stender developed about the Victory Chorus, is that we also wanted to talk about having some level of victory over the stigma of the disease. That it was a powerful word. And the theme of the Victory Chorus, and I know the Victory Fund really believes in the strong way, is bringing joy and enrichment to people living with dementia and not just them, but their caregivers and their care partners, because we really want this to be a supportive mechanism for them as well. They are equally as important in this venture, and I don't always talk about them as much, but we encourage them to sing if they want to, but we don't necessarily make them partners with their loved one. You know, if they want a little break, and I know we have one wonderful family that's been involved since the beginning, but it's a daughter-in-law and her mother-in-law that are in the choir, and you know, the daughter-in-law has said to me, you know, I'd really rather not, because you know her mother-in-law responds better if it's somebody other than her, because she's telling her things all day long, and you know, is in that role of caregiver all the time. And said, you know, during the choir, it's really nice that both of them get a break. They both sing the choir. And then sometimes I know at one point I had one of the care partners who came, and she would just sit in the corner in the congregational area and read a book, because it was one of the few times that she just got some time to themselves. A lot of times we do want care partners to stay in the building with them, because one of the major things that happens with dementia is people become often anxious about where their care partner is. And so if somebody can just at least see them, we found that helps anybody who has that kind of insight. But we are hoping to offer more support. And I also want you to know that there are a number of groups that are out there to support people other than something like the Victory Chorus. The Alzheimer's Association has support groups for care partners, and we also now are starting a support group that I think is really critically important for people who've just been diagnosed with dementia. And that's the first time that they've done that type of group, and I think it's a really important one. We all know how much it helps us when we're with people that we have common problems with, or anything in common with. And so just sharing and having people normalize our feelings is really an important piece. So that's another thing. Yeah.
Therese has a question or a comment.
Actually, 2 comments. I have a friend who is a volunteer singer who comes every Wednesday over to BHC at 2 o'clock, and she really enjoys that. So thank you for that. And I have an old friend named Bob who's 91, and I brought him and I signed him up. And I helped him turn the pages and stuff. And Bob is the kind of guy, if you go, hello, Bob, he'll go, hello, my baby, hello, my, yeah, he's one of those guys. But it's like that Bugs Bunny cartoon. Did you ever see that with the hobo and the frog? And the frog is a top hat and a cane and sings and dances. But if anyone else is around, that frog just sat there. So now when I'm listening to you, I'm wondering if we could get him here, and I left. I wonder if he'd respond, but he wouldn't come back the second time. He never sang a note. It was sad. Anyway, tried.
Yeah, and then you're not alone with that experience. I mean, we had a number of people at ADS, and I would say, I know the first day that we were there, we had a gentleman, really sweet guy who he's in his 80s, but he's blind. And so as soon as we brought the music out and everything, he knew that, and he said, well, I can't do this, I'm blind. And so we encouraged him to keep coming, and and turns out that he just loves it now. And it has done, his wife has told us that it has done him enormous good to be part of the choir, but he was very reticent at first. And we've had a couple other people up there, and because they're part of ADS, they just kind of bring him down. And then we've had so much fun up there with different people, and we've had a little bit more opportunity, I think, to just socialize with them. We don't have the same time limits in some ways that we do here. And we have a charming woman in her 90s named Betty who plays violin. And our accompanist will stay after about 15 to 20. He's given her a time limit now because she could go on forever. But he will accompany her while she plays on her violin. And it's so sweet to see. And she was in the concert, and she had 3 daughters who looked just like her. They're just 20 years younger. And they all came up and said, we're Betty's daughters, and she loves us. And they had not seen their mother as happy as she'd been, now since she's been doing this music stuff, and they were just thrilled about it. And those are the kinds of things we hear after a while. And then we have another lovely gentleman. One of the songs that we sang this time was Yellow Submarine by the Beatles. And we brought out kazoos, and then we decided we couldn't. We were going to do kazoos at the concert, but we decided because of COVID, we better not do that. But we brought out different instruments, and we do. Oh gosh, Kathy, what's the name of the movement thing that we do? It's Moving Groove. Moving Groove. We do a section during the choir rehearsal called Moving Groove, and it's listening to music and moving your hands around and doing some balance things and like that, and we have a ball with it.
We have another question or comment over here, but I think where you were going with that was, so we sang the song Yellow Submarine, and this guy was on a submarine. He had been on a submarine in the war or sometime, I don't know.
That was his whole career.
His whole career,
Yeah,
okay. But he was a career Navy guy, and he was on a submarine.
Yes, and every time we would sing the song, we would bring it up, and he'd wear his submarine hat. And then we would talk about the fact that, however, his submarine was not yellow, it was black. And then we would ask him questions about it, and he would always admit, I can't tell you that, it's classified. But we talked about it every week. I was waiting for it to happen at the concert because we had talked about it all the time. And he was so proud of being on that submarine.
We're gonna have to borrow this one because the batteries are on the microphone. But Carol Michelson has a thought.
People have heard me talk about my 102-year-old mother before, but anyway, she was at Keystone Bluffs, and every one day a week, sometimes 2 days a week, they would have happy hour where they could have wine or a beverage, and they'd always have somebody come in, not usually just somebody with a guitar or somebody else, but invariably they'd start singing really old songs, and everybody with them, and they sang. So I thought, this is music is just wonderful for them, for everybody.
Oh yeah, everybody loves a campfire.
Yeah, everybody loves a campfire treats it.
We're gonna have.
Oh, we are, okay.
But you're exactly right. I mean, people they enjoy music so much, and there are quite a few different musical groups that come in and sing for them, and some of them. And I think we're unique in the sense that we really engage them and have them do it with us. And Keystone Bluffs is really good because we did go up there a few times, and that's one of the potential sites that we would look at, because we put we put on our posters before we started the Benedictine Chorus this year, inviting people, and they have a lot of assisted living people up there that could get to the church possibly, but we have this poster in there, and somebody had written on the bottom of it, can we have this here? We don't know who did it, but obviously there's a lot of interest up there about the Benedictine Chorus.
Are you thinking of going to Pines 3 at all? Pines 3, Mount Rival, Pines 3.
This summer we're going to focus on some musical outreach, and that would definitely be a great spot for us to go. And maybe I'll touch base with you after to see who a contact might be up there, because I think the Pines have such a cross, they do a lot of services across the spectrum, and so it'd be a great place to go. Yeah. So Kathy, I was wondering if because somebody asked if we were going to sing. Is that what you said? Yes. Someone thought we were going to sing, and so I thought maybe we could do I Love the Mountains if you would help.
Good. The Unitarians have a thing. You're all supposed to wear a mask when you sing.
Oh, sorry.
Well, but it could be a little secret if you have masks. All right, those of you that have a mask. All right, so this is one of the songs that we did, and I'll just it was a round, but I can't do a round by myself. You can help. No, that's okay. No, I don't remember this song. I love the rolling hills, I love the flowers, I love the daffodils, I love the fireside. The lights are low, boom-dia, 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 boom-dia. I love the hills, I the flowers. Okay, all together for the last time. I love the flowers, I love the hills, I love the flowers, I love the fires on where the lights are I want to say that I would love for any of you to join the Victory Chorus, either the one on Wednesdays or the one here at our very own church on Sunday afternoons. The other thing is if you have any ideas for outreach, to send those over to Candy. If you have ideas about organizations or groups or people we could reach out to, and especially, you guys said this at the beginning, but if you're aware of anybody, of a couple or somebody that's living at home and one of them has a little bit of a cognitive thing going on, that's initially that was really our target market, especially people that feel increasingly isolated at home and they're not able to do the stuff that they used to do. This is a great opportunity for that. So what are we doing on time? We got 5 more minutes. Will Munger, yes.
Any holiday concerts scheduled
For the Victory
that we could go to?
No, well, like I said, we're seeing holiday music at BHC every Wednesday at 2 for the month of December. And anybody's welcome for that.
Event we already had here a couple weeks ago, just before Thanksgiving.
Yes. Thank you so much for.
All right, Candy, we'll leave it for 5 minutes. If you have any questions, feel free to chat her up. Nice to see all of you online and feel free to come to church.